Howdy howdy, Sudevil here, and welcome to a video where we're going to go over the builds that I have for this patch. So since the Empire patch is released and the changes to the Rune Lord have occurred, I kind of went through and redid my builds, and then I thought, you know what, I'm going to redo all of my builds, and I'm going to have a goal in mind that I use every single dwarf character and unit in at least one build somewhere, including the ancestors, the ethereal units from for Belagar's army. So what I'm going to do is I'll go through each and every matchup, share the current build that I have, and I'll talk about it. And it's sort of like theory crafting because I haven't really had a chance to test these out yet. I mean, I played a couple of games, one against my coach or work boss, and one ladder game, and that's it. But these are the theory crafted builds. So it'll be interesting to look back after the next patch where the meta might change or changes to the units occur, and see what my thinking was, 3 months from now, and look back, and hopefully I can improve my performance on the next patch by adjusting my builds and I'm really trying to develop my understanding of my own bias, my own theory crafting, and my own ideas. Plus, I want to use every single dwarf unit in the game. That's that. I don't care if the build is not as competitive as it could be. I want to use all the Dawi units. So I'm asking you, those of you that want to go through this with me, also just to watch, because if I missed any units, let me know in the comments below. I don't know that I have. I mean, I certainly could have. And there is something I'm also going to do. I am going to make a dwarf civil war build. I hate mirror matches, and I don't like the idea of fighting dwarfs against other dwarfs. But you know what? It does happen in the lore from time to time over a grudge or something like that. Not very often. So I thought, you know what? I'll make one more army in case I get a dwarf mirror, and that's what I'll bring. And it's actually an interesting army, and we'll go through it. So I'm going to go through every Dawi army, and I have in fact made sure that every single one is an exact spend of 12,400 gold because dwarf, and we'll go through like that. So the first army I'm going to go with is my anti-beastman army. So I've picked Karat Kadrin, and I do like the other flags. Like, I know it gives away that I'm not going to have certain heroes, but I do like the red uniforms and the red flags. And this is the latest build that I'm going to bring against the Beastmen. I do have a similar build, I think, on tape somewhere, but this is the updated build. I do have Ungram Iron Fist, and I just have him, no abilities at 1,250 gold. He was reduced by 100 gold. He can do good against some of the Beastmen bigger units, because there's always going to be chariots of some sort, or I don't ever foresee a Beastman army that doesn't have at least some large. I also have a Runesmith, and with the Runesmith, because I have a whole bunch of Slayers that are at 0 armor, I had the extra gold, I brought the Rune of Oath and Steel for the 30 armor. And I do have the Rune of Wrath and Rune for that 72% speed debuff and 72% charge speed. I have 4 Slayers, including the Regiment of Renown Dragonback Slayers for my backline, and 4 Ironbreakers, including the Regiment of Renown Norgrimlings Ironbreakers in the front line. Now, Ironbreakers are very good in this matchup, particularly against Bestigors, and Slayers are actually quite good as well, because even if they end up fighting, as long as they're not fighting Bestigors, most Beastmen forces actually are pretty low armor, and that includes, that actually pretty much everything but Bestigors and heroes. So, and I also actually have 2 quarters with great weapons in the back line. Now, I did previously have in a similar build 2 just basic rangers, but I do like to have that extra ammo, and because there are no armor-piercing missile units in the Beastmen lineup, I think the quarters with great weapons, I don't need the shields. And having that extra ammo is good, and that extra defense versus Ungor Raiders is good, and they'd be able to get that slight extra damage in the back line if something gets in there like a chariot or a lord is actually also good. So that's how I've set the build. I know, having used this, this build is reasonably robust. I mean, double Cygor beats this build pretty hard, I think, but you know, just because Cygors are just so difficult to deal with. I mean, I just got the extra Slayers, but they can really deal with your Ironbreakers, which is the problem. The double Cygor can just wipe out your Nurglings and the rest of your Ironbreakers, and eventually they can get rid of your Slayers. But that's sort of the build that I've got and the gambit I'm going with, because the Beastmen actually can be a pretty hard faction to play. So the next faction on the list is Bretonnia. So I'll just pull up Bretonnia here. And Bretonnia I have changed twice now. So now I have twice recently, we'll say. So Bretonnia, I've actually played Bretonnia recently, and I did switch to Grombrindle, the White Dwarf. I do have Flash Bomb with him and no other abilities as my leader, no other heroes on the build right now. And I have 5 Dwarf Warriors for the backline and 4 Dwarf Warriors to help defend the backline and 5 Longbeards to help defend my front line. And what I've done for this is I still have that Gyrocopter. I've really switched and brought in 2 Iron Drakes with Trollhammer Torpedoes because Luan Leon Kerr can be so crushing. And I do have the Thunders that are going to help there, and I do have 2 Quarters with great weapons. Again, they can counter Peasant Bowmen quite well, even though they don't have the shields, and they can do a little bit extra damage to cavalry if it gets in the back, or things like foot squires. And I do have 2 little tricks in the back pocket, are Rangers and Rangers with great weapons. And the idea is that these 2 guys will Vanguard deploy together to quickly take down heavy trebuchet builds, because I think you can see Bretonnia, some of them bring like 4 trebuchets, and we saw that in that last battle I had, and I saw another battle with a 4 trebuchet build. And I think these Rangers and Rangers with great weapons could be quite good, because you just set the Rangers back there to start shooting them. And if he just wants to bring 1 unit back to help, because I would just keep the Rangers with great weapons hidden behind these Rangers, not attacking the trebuchets, then I could use these Rangers to help kill whatever comes to get them, because he will probably only send 1 unit to get the Rangers, so I might be able to keep actually fighting in that case. So that's my build. That's the ideas behind my build versus Bretonnia. I think the Dawi still have a decent advantage in this matchup. And you know, so we'll keep on going from there. So the next matchup, I believe, is Chaos, and we'll just see. Yep, versus Chaos. So I have Clan Angren's colors flying for my Chaos build, and this build is really to help stop chariots. I have Rune Lord, Runesmith, and the double Runesmith. Really, all with the Rune of Wrath and Rune for that minus 72% charge speed and minus 72% speed debuff. They're there for really 3 things. Number 1 is those chariots, and because they're so difficult to deal with, slow them down and actually try and get something on them. The second is Sithoril specifically, and my whole backline is actually based on defeating Sithoril. I've actually removed cannons from this build and changed it. I used to have 2 cannons, then I went down to 1 cannon, and now I'm down to 0 cannons versus the Chaos. I think I maybe actually started with 3 cannons. And I used to use 4 gyrocopters a long time ago. But anyway, this is really to do that, and also lastly to deal with dogs or marauder horsemen with throwing axes, and then really using Rune of Wrath and Rune combined with fire in from Quarters and Rangers to do that. Now the Altars Raiders and the 2 Rangers are meant to be hidden until Sithoril gets deep in the back line, so they're meant to be deployed a little bit further back. And the Hammers all have 1 Chevron for our Chevron trick to fight in that front line, because they dominate Chaos Warriors with great weapons, although they do lose to Chosen with great weapons. So, you know, this does not have real good power versus Chosen with great weapons. If someone brings like a 3 Chosen with great weapons build and the rest all infantry, no Sithoril, and maybe just bring Sigvald and no chariots, this build's going to struggle a lot. But I mean, it's sort of an all-in build with the idea they're going to bring Sithoril, because Sithoril is very, very strong, and they're going to bring chariots. Really, that's what's dominating. So this will actually be able to defend against those three things, and that is sort of my leadership. I do have obviously my front line of hammers and my back line, which I talked about, is really a decent support, because the thing about rangers is they're really good against dogs, they're really good against marauders, marauder horsemen, marauders with great weapons, which you do frequently see. And if you use the Ulthar's Raiders with Marked by Ulthar to remove the 30 armor from even Kolek, but it does remove 30 armor from Sithoril. Like if we look at Sithoril here, where is he? He actually has 30 armor, so it's perfect versus him. Plus he has this missile resistance of 50%. So you add those two together, and you get he gets 30 armor and 22% missile resistance reduction. You don't get the missile parry reduction, but it's for 28 seconds. And I have tested it, and you can burn him down with this group. So if he comes in and tries to trash can my Quarrelers, ahead, because sometimes he does. Sometimes people are just so brash. If you don't have cannons, they'll just bring Sithoril right into your back line and just think they can run around, because they usually can, and there's no Slayers back there. I can trap him with the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune, and burn him down with this back line, and then use my other two runes for chariots or doggos or whatever, and then use my gyrocopter to really harass everything else. And that gyrocopters will help versus big stuff like chariots, but they can do pretty decent damage to Chosen with great weapons. So that's my Chaos army. Who's next? Dark Elves. Okay, so we get Dark Elves. Where are they? There they are. Oh, right. I got my Dark Elves here. So I have chosen to fly Karak Kadrin's flag for the Dark Elves. This has not changed a whole lot. It's pretty much the same build, to be honest. I had Runesmith, a Rune Lord combo before with the Rune of Wrath and Rune and the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune for their only abilities, no Hammer of Karak draws. They were there to double Rune Malekith and stop him or catch chariots, really, and to otherwise use their runes on Hargoneth Executioners and Sisters of Slaughter, but you don't really need them for that anymore. I mean, you can't do that anymore because it doesn't do any damage, but it can still stop some of their faster things or maybe delay some other stuff. Same old, really. The Miners with Blasting Charges, the two Iron Drakes are there very specifically to defend against Harpies. The two Bolt Throwers and two Thunders are really there to put pressure on... Well, these guys defend against Harpies, and they're also very, very good against Sisters of Slaughter and Witch Elves, stuff like that. The Thunders and Bolt Throwers are there for big stuff, like, if they did get a Dragon or Chariots, or to really get that armor piercing, and to really help versus Hargoneth Executioners, again, if you see them. Same with the Gyrocopters, able to fly around and really force the battle. Like, that's the beauty of the Gyrocopter. I can force that battle early, and if I do pull something like a Harpy who tries to chase them down, they're faster than Harpies. Harpies are 85. These guys are 105. They can pull them into a Bolt Thrower, stuff like that. So that's sort of the way this build is structured. I haven't changed it for a while. I do have a recent live battle, two actually live battle casts with, I think, precisely this build. I may have added in the Dwarf Warriors with great weapons recently. But these guys are a little bit buffed. I do got a Chevron on them. They've gotten 2 extra melee attack in the last patch, and I do got 2 Chevrons on the Iron Drakes, hopefully to allow them to quickly get an extra Chevron. But it just worked out to get to 0. So that's versus the Dark Elves. All right, so next is the Dawi Civil War, and this is an interesting army. So think about what you would bring if you were going to fight the Dawi, because I thought about this a lot. If you were going to have to fight Dwarf versus Dwarf, well, I would actually want to bring Clan Angren, because your ancestors have, the Dawi have very little magical damage. So I've got both Halkenhaf Stonebeard and Kinglon Ironhammer, the 2 Thanes, and I've got the Base Lord, and they've all got this Foe Seeker for the extra speed, and these guys have Foe Seeker for the extra speed. I couldn't get the slow in there, So really what I have in here is all artillery. The idea is send these guys out, they have fear and terror, to slow things down and use all artillery to gun it down. So if the Dawi bring like 4 artillery in the to use against me, I can win the artillery battle. If they bring gyrocopters, I can win the gyrocopter battle. I do have a gyro bomber. If they bring a lot of thunders, which is common in a Dawi mirror match, I can beat thunders. Really, the only build that this absolutely gets dumpstered against is just a melee rush build. But even then, I would spread these quite far apart and hold things up with my 2 Thanes, because they are a little bit faster with Foe Seeker. They're 40 speed, and they have fear and terror, so they can slow things down. And you're not going to see Slayers in the opposing Dwarf build, so your fear and terror will actually be useful, because it'll also be combined with the buff of being hit by artillery. So the idea is, even if I get a terror out and it doesn't last for long, what it does is it stops things advancing on this, and then I have 4 grudge throwers. Because I figure if you're going to be fighting against other dwarfs, it's 100% likely it's going to be because of a grudge, and I also got the Goblobber and 2 cannons. So that is my anti-Dawi build. Oh, I should have had this up here. That's why I was doing this first and then getting my build, because I know I would forget to do this. So the next build is going to be the Empire. So I'm going to grab the Empire up here. Okay, Empire. Where are they? All right. And I have changed this build slightly since the last patch. What I've gone is with a basic Lord here at just at 900 gold. And I've brought in 2 organ guns and 2 cannons. Now, I think this is a bit inspired by a Wizard Lizard, who brought a similar idea for this backlines, to let the cannons defend themselves, defend each other, let the organ guns defend the cannons, which I think was an interesting idea. I have 2 Bugman's Rangers, which got a lot more expensive than this last patch. They're now 802 Thunder. So my back line is really quite powerful. And my front line, I remove my basic Longbeards, and I have all Longbeards with great weapons and miners. Now, Longbeards with great weapons and miners are all great against Cav. Well, miners aren't great against Cav, but Longbeards with great weapons, they're definitely great against Cav. And if you do see a flyer like Carl Franch, you can gut him out of the sky with thunders. We've done that before. In the very last battle, I had Thorgrim Grudgebearer in my army. You can see it. It is, I think it's up in my leftover battles live casts from last patch video. I think I have 4 battles on that. It's in there where I used Thorgrim against the Empire, and I had 4 Bugman's Rangers. We've gone down to 2 and added that artillery to really let these organ guns sing, because these organ guns are going to do good against Cav, they're going to do against other things, and they're going to do good against a black spot. So I saw builds. The build that I saw, which was really interesting, was Lotus Moon brought Empire versus the Dawi, and he brought, where's this wagon? Here, the Black Lions. And they are they have a ton of damage. They have a Hellblaster volley gun in the back of a wagon. And Hellblaster volley guns got upgraded quite a bit. Their range, though, is only 290. These guys have a range of 300. Plus, I got 2 cannons. So, I could lose an artillery duel if the Empire did bring 4 cannons. That could be a problem, like, or 3 cannons. Yeah, 4 cannons. Really, that's the build that I'd be most worried about. Could lose an artillery duel. But, I mean, I could also potentially do reasonably well against it. And I have the ability to protect my back line with these Bugman's Rangers and the Thunders, because I can put the Bugman's Rangers on the outside. And, really, the whole idea is not to win this frontline engagement. It's to slow down whatever they have, and ultimately use the organ guns against infantry and stuff like that. So I don't know how this is going to do at all. This is a completely theory-crafted build. My frontline troops are very, very different in that I have 4 Longbeards great weapons. I know they're not good frontline troops, but they're very excellent anti-cav. So I figure the idea is if I can eliminate the Empire artillery and all their mobility, and hold up their infantry long enough to let my backline with the Thunders and then cannons and finally the organ guns allow them to go to work, then I'm going to be able to do that, because that is a ton of damage in my back line with 2 Thunders, 2 cannons, and 2 organ guns. So we'll see how that plays out. And this is actually also defends against Lotus Moon's build which is mobile and has the Black Lions, because I saw like he crushed the Dawi, like absolutely devastated. He had like these guys, and then he did, I think, some handgunners, and what else did he have? I think he brought. Oh my goodness, he brought some other mobile guys. It might have been huntsmen. No, these are anti-large. Maybe he brought archers or something like that. Like he had some sort of build like where he had a lot of range like this and some support to go with it, and it was really quite an interesting idea and build. So you know, I really think that the Dawi have a big advantage in this matchup, so it's easier to sort of take a little more of a risky lineup like this. And if he does bring a ton, like the Longbeards with great weapons are not going to be the greatest at standing up to handgunners, but if he brings a ton of handgunners, the organ guns will mow down the handgunners. So that's the idea, is why I'm not bringing anything with shields. Well, I mean, I have some Bugman's Rangers and Thunders and obviously my Lord, but so is the idea is that really I want to win that battle and figure it out from there. This build might get demolished. I really don't know. It's completely experimental for me. So the next faction is Greenskin. So this Greenskin build is going to remain the same as my last setup. I did have a fight. No, it's actually a little different. So my last fight with my last build was against General Confusion in the Shadow Online Gaming's tournament. And so in this new patch, I'm going to keep the Rune Lord with the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune to slow anything big down like chariots or something that gets into my back line. And I'm going to have the Runesmith to do the same, but he's also going to have the Hammer of Carrick draws for Black Orcs. Then I have really the thing that I'm worried about in this matchup is a 4 Doomdiver build. So really, Cannon combined with Goblobber and this minus 16 leadership eats Doomdivers alive. And then the Gyrocopter with the regular Gyrocopter and the Gyrocopter Brimstone guns, if there's nothing to contest in the air, they also eat them alive. Like they just, like these 4 really dominate against Greenskin artillery. The inside of my line is protected by Iron Drakes and 2 Thunders. So the idea was, and this came from my coach or Orca boss, he really, we talk theory crafting from time to time, and we talked about my previous build, and he said it didn't have enough armor piercing and the ability to kill big things. So really I swapped out all of my archers for Thunders, and now these Thunders can put in a ton of damage pretty quick, even on heroes, on Black Orcs, on stuff like that, and the Iron Drakes are really there to do the same. And combined with this slow, if something does try to sneak into my line, it's not like I have a lot to protect here, but I can by slowing it down, letting my cannon and my Grudge Thrower shoot against their back line, while I let the 2 Thunders and the Iron Drakes shoot against anything that tries to get inside the line. And then of course Dwarf Warriors are really for that backline defense against Wolf Riders and Squig Hoppers and Squigs and all kinds of stuff like that. So that's sort of how the build is structured. Alright, moving on to the next build versus the High Elves. And here we go. And again, build here 2 Runesmiths and a Rune Lord to really defend against those noble chariots and chariots in general. They're so difficult to deal with. This really is going to make it much harder to just go into the Mac line and crush. And I have swapped some stuff out, but really they're at 782 because I also have both of them with the Hammer of Carrick draws. Minus 44 melee attack for 50 seconds. That is to help handle Swordmasters or anything big that tries to get into the back line. And for my Rune Lord, I also have with the Master Rune of Wrath and Rune, I also have him with the Master Rune of Grungni. Now for the 20% missile resistance, it's pretty common to see at least some missiles. And the idea, what I always see, I mean, I could be wrong in this, so it could be a mistake to bring him with that ability, is that they do tend to focus on your Iron Drakes. You know, High Elf players know Dwarf players, a lot of them bring Iron Drakes, and they know they bring Gyrocopters, so they'll bring the Sisters of Avalorn, maybe one unit of that, and like 1 to 4 units of archers, and it's frequent enough that I think this could be useful, keeping the Rune Lord with the Iron Drakes to help defend them against missile fire. Not that they do pretty good as it is, because they're a small group and they have a lot of armor, but that's the idea of that build. Then of course I have chevroned up the Longbeards, and that is to be able to fight White Lions as Trace to a draw. That's the idea. I only have one at 4, but the other four are at 6 chevrons. This is something that we tested in some of our testing videos, where I can fight White Lions to a draw and hold that front line much longer. Against Swordmaster Hoeth, not happening. But the idea is that if there is White Lions, I can fight them to a draw with the Longbeards and use my Quarters of Great Weapons, Iron Drakes, and Brimstone Guns to kill the Swordmaster Hoeth if I have to. And if they don't have anything big, I can use the Runesmiths with their ability to actually delay the Swordmaster of Hoeth getting to the front line, or I can delay up to 3 and get them with the Iron Drakes. Or if he tries to dive bomb with Eagles, or a Lariel on an Eagle, or maybe something really crazy like a dragon, I can bring them back, and I can also defend that Gyrocopter in the air in case they do bring some sort of Air Force like pigeons and the Flamefire's Phoenix, anything like that. I can slow that down and kill it when it gets close. So that's the idea of this army. Again, don't know how it's going to perform. I don't know if this is too much, but I think it protects me from the double chariot with the double noble on the chariot with the Lithomar chariots. Like they can bring. High Elves can easily bring 4 chariot units and overwhelm that. It also can help slow down Dragon Princes, even though it doesn't do damage to them, so that I can take more like 1 Dragon Prince on at a time, or 2 on at a time, instead of a whole bunch, and that kind of thing. So we'll see how it performs in an actual fight. I really don't know, but that's sort of the idea of the build versus the High Elves. Alright, next versus the Lizardmen. Alright. Turns out that these Longbeards at 6 chevrons also beat Saurus Warriors straight up. And I had a very good game against a Rourke boss, and I've changed this build slightly since that game to my old build. I'll air that game. I'm not too sure when I'll get to it, but you'll be able to see it. And I have made some changes. And again, a Rourke boss is a big fan of having lots of power in it. That's why he loves Trollhammers. So I've changed to Ungrim Iron Fist. I did have, I think, a Rune Lord in that build. I had Ungrim Iron Fist for a long time, actually. Maybe I had Ungrim in that build. But anyways, the idea is the Longbeards at 6 chevrons hold that front line and beat Saurus straight up. All the 5 miners, I don't need to deal with red-crested skinks. Longbeards will just crush red-crested skinks. The miners are there to slow things down that are in my backline, like big monsters, Croxagors, Mazdamundion, Slack, stuff like, just slow them down, so I can let my backline of the Thunders and 2 Iron Drakes and the Bolt Thrower perform. And I've got Quarters with Great Weapons, because the Great Weapons can do some damage to Croxagors and to big stuff, but really to help deal with red-crested skinks and any chameleon skinks or anything like that. And I've got no Slayers in this army, so I'm not really vulnerable to missile pressure as it is. So anyways, that's I've got good killing power on the 2 Iron Drakes, Trollhammer Torpedo, and the ability to draw them in with the Gyrocopters, and to really with the Bolt Thrower and the Gyrocopter to help, and the Quarters with their range, and Thunders. Thunders are really good at dealing with Skink Chiefs on Pterodons, and I can draw things in with the Gyrocopter Brimstone Guns like Pterodon Riders, stuff like that, and Quarters can help kill them. So that's sort of my backline, and that's sort of how it is operating right now. So we'll see. It feels strong, but and it felt good against my coach last time I played. So And moving on to Norska. So this build, I've actually been able to play it a few times now, and I've done reasonably well with it. And so I haven't really made any change to it. Like I mean, I moved around the chevrons a bit since everything got cheaper. Since the new patch came out, which really changed the Rune of Wrath and Rune and the cost of some of these units, but the army is basically the same. And this army, I played it now for a little while, and really it replaced an army that had been getting absolutely. I mean, I had been losing to Norska and getting beat badly by Norska, so this is the army it changed to. Anyways, concept is pretty simple. There's a lot of heavy hitters in this army. And it's to deal with the Norska heavy hitters. So Norska can bring big things. It can bring the Fimir. It can bring skin wolves. It can bring mammoths. It can bring chariots. It can bring large wolves. I mean, it can bring good infantry. And so this is the build. So basically, I got a Rune Lord. The only ability he has is Rune of Wrath and Rune. That is to slow things down. Now, I do not have a ranged department here, really. I only have a gyrocopter, and I only have a bolt thrower. Okay? So I don't have like typical things to, if he brings like a dragon or, because he can bring a frost worm, right? And something in the air, I mean, I have no way to, my gyrocopter would just get beat down. So what I would do is kite it towards the bolt thrower, let the bolt thrower shoot, and just hit it with the Rune, Master Rune, Wrath and Rune, and bang, it is sitting at like 10 speed for 38 seconds, and then I can open up with the gyrocopter and open up with the bolt thrower. I'm probably still going to lose my gyrocopter, but I also have another rune that I can cast on it to slow it down. So I can manage to keep that thing slow for a minute. I don't know that I can kill it, but that's what that is. I also have a Rune Lord here. So the Runesmith has my typical loadout, Rune of Wrath and Rune, and now it doesn't have the damage portion, but it is what it is, and I have the Hammer of Character Oz, and that's for any big heavy hitters like the Mist Stalkers or anything that gets the Brute to the Hound, things that get into my line. I can give them minus 44 melee attack for nearly a minute, minus 25% weapon damage. That's really going to help me. I also have a Thane. Now, I had a Thane before the patch. Now the Thane is 100 gold cheaper, so I have the Thane plus an extra 100 gold. And so what I have for him is the Rune of Slowness, minus 18% speed. And if you'll notice, that's 40 meters around himself. 18% speed reduction goes with this 72% speed reduction to equal a 90% speed reduction. So they were thinking about this rune and the Thane's rune going together, because 90% is as slow as you can slow something down. Also, I have the Dragonback Slayers, which can obviously slow things by 36%. And so that's to go with the Thane as well. And for my front line, I do have Longbeards, and they're always going to be backed up with Miner's Blasting Charges right behind the front line to shoot over top of them, and that will really chew through lightly armored things like Berserkers. And if he brings really heavily armored stuff, I mean, it's going to be a little bit harder. For the back line, really on my sides, I have Longbeards with great weapons. They have good mass, they're good against chariots, and they can slow things down. But if you get into my back line, all that's sitting there is a Bolt Thrower and 3 groups of Slayers, with 2 of them being Giant Slayers. And I got my little Chevron trick here with the 2 Giant Slayers with 1 Chevron, so they can get a free one in the game. And that's pretty much it. And of course now I have 3 Chevrons of the Bolt Thrower. I think I just swapped around the Chevrons and gave everyone Chevrons where they didn't really have. So, because I got 50 gold with the Rune Lord. No. 50 gold with the Runesmith and 100 gold with the Thane. So I got an extra 150 gold out of the deal, and I think this is the exact same army with just better chevrons. So that's the army versus Norska, and it's been all right. Like, I've enjoyed it. Like, this gyrocopter, you know, just being able to get around the map and scout and get in early chip damage and stuff like that is really, really good. All right, so we will move along to the next build, and that is going to be versus the Skaven. All right, and against Clan Angren, we'll grab the Skaven. And so this one, I actually added one of the ancestors. So, but I did it with a Master Engineer. So I saw a game played by Glorious Feeder where he brought the Fire Ring of Thoria against Skaven, and it worked really, really well. Like, it's not that expensive, 148 gold. but it actually worked really, really nice against the cheap infantry. And I also got the 18% accuracy for the Prospector Spyglass, and I've got the ballistics calibration. And I would put him right in the middle of my artillery, and that artillery is meant for killing very specifically Warplock Jezzails. And you know, having them be 38% more accurate is going to help, especially with the Goblobber. For the rest of the army, Belegar Ironhammer, he's 100 gold cheaper than he was before. He's still good, has a silver shield in case there is Jezzails that have shield breaker. And he fights reasonably well, and if you saw my game against Rorquabos, I mean, he's just a beast when it comes down to the very end of the game, and very strong. But now that I have Fear and Terror at the end of the game, I mean, that's might be a game changer. I don't know. We'll see. For the rest of the army, I did have to change a lot to get the ethereal unit in here. I had to reduce a lot of basic Longbeards and replace them with cheaper units. So I've got 4 basic miners and 3 miners with blasting charges, and then 4 dwarf warriors, and then I have in here the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass for cleaning up chaff. So keep in with my cannons in the back, these 2 Longbeards and the Warriors of Dragonfire Pass, and potentially a couple of miners to help slow things down, and then put my dwarf warriors and the miners with blasting charges up near the front to slow down their main infantry engagement so I can take out their Jezzails. I haven't used this yet, but I'm looking forward to it. So I think, I don't know how susceptible this would be to you know, Doom Flayers and Doom Wheels, but with that extra accuracy with Dramar and the cannons, I think I could take out at least 1 Doom Wheel pretty easily, and maybe a Doom Flayer. Doom Flayers are hard because they're hard to hit, but maybe that extra accuracy gets me there. And the Gyrocopter, the only reason this Gyrocopter is here, and it does just a regular Gyrocopter, is to scout the back of the map to look for Death Runners, because Death Runners are devastating when they get into the back, because they can kill Longbeards. I mean, they if they get a rear charge on Warriors during Fire Pass, they'll kill them. They'll easily go through all your artillery. If I can scout them, I can actually kill them with the Gyrocopter before they get to my line. And even, you know, because I can bomb them, I can shoot them, and then when they get there, the Longbeards, or especially Warriors during Fire Pass, will just take them out, and then I can look through my entire back line for them. And I can be ready with Dramar, so that he can shoot them, and if they come there, they'll be already damaged. I can just charge him into fight and rear charge with the Gyrocopter, and that leadership pressure will instantly rout them with the Fear and Terror, and then I can shoot them the rest of the way. So that's the idea to control Death Runners. If he brings more than 2 Death Runners, I mean, this build probably is going to really struggle to handle that. You know, like, but at least I can handle it a little bit, because I can deploy my Gyrocopter on one side behind me, and kind of go to the other side, and then have a really wide front line, so that if he goes around, he has to take a pretty wide berth to actually achieve that. And when he gets there with anything, I do have Dramar with that Fear and Terror, and he can just go and get fighting him. So that Fear and Terror is not nothing against these Skaven units. So again, this is completely theory crafted. I've never used Dramar before, and I'm trying to use every single unit on all the rosters in a Dawi build somewhere here or there. So that is my Skaven build. Now we'll go to the Tomb Kings. Now what do I have for the Tomb Kings? Tomb Kings hasn't really changed a whole lot. I have to pay 100 more gold for these guys. My Runesmith got a little cheaper. You know, my Rangers got a little more expensive. I had to change a little bit to do this, but I basically have the Rune of Wrath and Rune here for the minus speed, and I also have the Master Rune of Grungni for the missile resistance, because the Tomb Kings, oh, I gotta put this up here. The Tomb Kings can bring some pretty powerful missile pressure against the Dawi, really, and particularly, I mean, everyone calls them Boshopti, but they can bring Bone Giants. They can bring obviously the Ushopti with Great Bow, and they can bring, where is the Regiment of Renown, the Chosen of the Gods, and they do have these Blessed Legion of Fox, and they really have armor sundering, so you're going to see them sometimes, and they can back them up with Skeleton Archer. So really the dangerous ones are the Ushopti with Great Bows. Obviously, these ones aren't so bad, the Bone Giants, because they do magical damage. And the Chosen of the Gods aren't actually too bad either. I mean, they do get rid of the missile parry, so you get one of these Chosen of the Gods with 2 Ushopti with Great Bows. They can really, really hurt some Dawi backlines, but you know, so I think it's worthwhile bringing that. And then with the Runesmith, again, the Rune of Wrath and Rune and the Hammer of Karak draws for something that's very powerful. Again, these guys can bring chariots, which is not uncommon. They can muck up your back line with carrion, which is really irritating. They can bring tomb scorpions, which are very powerful, and they don't have very good infantry. So I'm not super concerned about the infantry. Just got longbeards and dwarf warriors for that front line. And the back line is the longbeards with great weapons to stop chariots, along with miners sort of plugged in to help plug the gaps. And then, of course, the Dragonback Slayers, who are absolutely fantastic. Good missile resistance, and they have physical resistance as well. And then Rangers. So all these things, the two Bugman's Rangers and the Ulthor's Raiders are absolutely awesome at burning things down. And he can't shoot, the Tomb King's player can't just shoot at them because they're hidden, right? So he can't get your back line with his Ushabti from greater range, or even artillery, because they're hidden. So that's the one nice thing about having a complete ranger back line, is you can advance and not have them shot up. You know, I'd much rather, my Longbeards get shot up than Bugman's Rangers or Ulthor's Raiders. So this build I've used a few times. You've seen it on the channel if you've watched. Most recently against my coach Boss in a practice game. But it's a build that served me pretty well, so I haven't seen no reason to change it except to update it a little bit with the changing costs. All right, now for the Vampire Coast, Clan Angrand again, and so I've updated this build. I've taken out I used to have the Rangers. Now Rangers are pretty good. They have a little bit less ammo, and they are a little more susceptible to a game I saw with the Worker Boss versus another really great player. He brought, what is the Vampire Coast? He brought the Pirates of Sartosa and a whole bunch of these Sartosa Free Company. And they have armor, they have bonus versus infantry. They don't have armor piercing, but they chew through these non-armored Rangers like crazy. And they're really good against Slayers. So you got to be ready for them. So really what I've done is I've changed the Quarrelers. They have more ammo, so I have one less unit. They're a little more rugged with that extra armor, and they have that more ammo. I also brought back the Skolder Guard, brought in the Skolder Guard. I've never used the Skolder Guard before. I have them in the back line for that big armor piercing, and what they are specifically for is to deal with, deal with Depth Guard. So these guys are anti-infantry armor piercing, and these guys have no shields, and they're heavily armored at 90, and they got a buff and 4 health in the last match, so you know, got a little bit more armor piercing capability from the range, and that's what these Skolder Guard are meant to do. So I can't wait to use them in that role. And as a backup, they can obviously also go against other armored things that the Vampire Coast might bring, like big crabs or stuff like that, and help in there. Obviously still have Slayers. I only have 4, not 5. I have same with 4 Dwarf Warriors, same with Belegar Ironhammer. Like, he's just so good because he has a shield, so he can defend against missile pressure if it's there. I've gone from 5 to 3 Dwarf Warriors with great weapons. Now they did get a buff of +2 melee attack in the last patch. And what I've done is I added in the Ekron Miners. Now, Ekron Miners absolutely trash can these cheaper chaff, like the zombie pirates and the zombie pirate deckhands. They can absolutely obliterate them. And then they have frenzy, so they're also immune to psychology. So they're functionally, for the first little while, immune to terror and fear, which is really good. And they can back up that front line and make sure something really, really wins hard and fast, one of these Dwarf Warriors. And then lastly, I brought 1 Longbeard. Now, Longbeards do really good against the Sartosa Free Company, so I can line them up in the back just to help out with that backline engagement. And near the end of the game, having an extra unit with Encourage really will help make that matchup a little bit cleaner for the Dawi. Though I will say the Dwarfs have a huge advantage in this matchup, which I don't think it's changed some. It's changed somewhat because the Depth Guard got a little bit better, but I mean at the same time the Depth Guard got better, the zombie pirate deckhand mobs got worse. So I don't know. I think this is still a hard matchup. I mean, ultimately, I saw someone manually firing Queen Bess in a game. It was freaking crazy how good it was. So it can shoot real low and real fast instead of that big high arc of fire. It's actually pretty insane. But I really still think like kind of a build, sort of like a really heavy artillery build is the way to go. But I mean, I have my thoughts. It doesn't really matter. I don't play the Vampire Coast. I just know what I'd be afraid of, and this is it. Anyways, so that's my build versus Vampire Coast. Now, the next one we have is a Vampire Counts. So in this build, we'll go to Vampire Counts. We have Thorgrim Grudgebearer, and he's pretty much got the full package, the full kit and caboodle. The Great Book of Grudges, I also have him with High King, and that's in case he gets gooned. I mean, everyone in the army is going to get +8 melee attack, +12% weapon damage, +8 charge bonus, and immune to psychology, which is important on hammers because they are not immune to psychology. So that goes for troll iron drakes as well, and dwarf warriors. I also have a fully kitted out runesmith. I mean, I have everything. Forge Fire for the extra 10% armor piercing damage, and that's to really support the hammers and their armor piercing. Rune of Oath and Steel for the 30 armor. The Rune of Wrath and Rune to slow something down that might be in the back line. And, I really got to think about saving some of these till the very end in case someone draw kites me. Rune of Negation, plus 22% damage resistance for that initial engagement with the hammers. And the Master Rune of Groth One Eye for the +8 leadership to help combat fear and terror. And the Hammer of Carrick Draws to help control big things. Pretty much the same as always. I did have 2 Bugman's Rangers in here. I have changed that back line. And I have 2 Dwarf Warriors for the back line protection. And really my front line is to 2 Hammers and the Grumbling Guard. And then my back line is the Longbeards and the 2 Dwarf Warriors and the Dragonback Slayers. Then my range department is Iron Drakes for the fire damage and Iron Drake with Trollhammer Torpedoes to do a ton of damage. And I've also brought the Skyhammer Gyro Bomber. Now, I don't know how good this is going to do in this matchup, but I know the Skyhammer can do quite a bit of missile damage. And a lot of times vampires do bring bats and stuff like that, so if they bring bats, I can slow them down. I can slow them bats down with the Rune of Wrath and Rune, and get some damage in with the Iron Drakes. And I know Iron Drakes, just regular Iron Drakes, melt bats. So it's very, very risky to bring this Skyhammer, but I thought, why not? I mean, the dwarves have an advantage against the vampire counts and can take some more risks in this matchup. So, this really, Thorgrim, the Runesmith, Grumbling Guard, Hammer, that's my win condition, not this. So, my win condition is demolishing that front line really hard. And Iron Drakes are actually pretty rugged. If they get landed on by bats, that's not such a big deal. I mean, the Skyhammer's quite risky, but I mean, if he doesn't bring anything flying, he's going to have trouble because they have no missiles, right? So I'll be interested to see exactly how that goes. I don't know if that's the right way to play it. It's just how I'm going to try. I think this is my smallest army, too, at just 12, 12 units there. Is my Beastman army smaller? No, it's 12 as well. Okay. So then the last but not least is the Wood Elves. So Wood Elves... this is where I have brought another unit with Fear and Terror. That's Throny Ironbrow. And the reason I brought him is, so what I've got here is I've got the Rune Lord, and he is on his Anvil of Doom. Okay? So that's extra 15% magic resistance for everyone on the map. And what else have a ton of units with magic attacks? Like Ancient Treeman, magic attacks. Durthu, magic attacks. Glade Lords, magic missiles. The only one that doesn't have magic attacks is Orion, right? And he's anti-large. He's not exactly real awesome against the dwarfs. And then Waystalkers, magic ammunition. And then they have this, I have Kurnos. This Arrow of Kurnos. 600 meters, magic attack, magic missile. Spellslingers do magic damage. Dryads do magic damage. The, whatchamacallit? Tree can do magic damage, so I doubt you'll see them. Dragons have a magical attack, plus their breath is magic missiles and magic damage. So, if I'm going to bring a rune, this is, I think, a good place to bring the Throny, because I'm going to get the 15% magic resistance, and he is really weak to he's really weak to magic attacks, but I have a little magic resistance. So this is one of those things where it's a, and I brought with these guys the 44%, the 22% damage resistance, and with the Rune Lord the 44% damage resistance. So the magic attacks helps defend all this against all of the Wood Elves, except for Throny, which is he's actually pretty, magic attacks is pretty scary against him. But I also have the damage resistance stuff. The main thing I want to protect is this bad boy right here, the flame cannon. I don't want it to get it sniped out by the Arrow of Kurnos, and I don't want it to get so I want to keep my my artillery on point and on target. And at the end of the game, you know, Fear and Terror, they don't have a lot of units with Fear and Terror, the Wood Elves, actually. You know, none of their infantry, I don't think, cause Fear and Terror. And their missile units certainly do not cause Fear and Terror. Their Wild Riders cause fear, but not terror. These missile cav, no fear. The Great Eagle causes fear, but not terror. Really, it's just the dragons and the tree man. So that's the only, pretty much the only thing that causes fear and terror. So even it may be a focus for him, but if he's focusing on Throny Ironbrow and letting my flame cannon go to work, well, that's fine too. I mean, they're both about the same price. The flame cannon will do a heck of a lot more damage to them, though. The flame cannon absolutely wrecks everything it touches. It is devastating against the Wood Elves. But I mean, I don't know. The Dawi have a big advantage in this matchup. This you can take these risks. So it is real risk reward, because they do have a lot of units that do some magic damage, and they can focus on Throny. But I mean, I can try and dodge with him, and I have some magic defense, and I have the Rune of Negation and the Master Rune of Negation, so I can get 66% negation on any attack. So plus the 15, so I can get really near 90 with that, and 75% physical resistance. So it'll be interesting to try him out. And of course, I also have the Hammer of Character Oz on him for giving something a problem for 50 seconds. So for his items, I have the 20% missile resistance, of course, for Way Watchers and stuff like. Really, it's the thing that can you gotta watch out for is you know, those Way Watchers. Someone bringing 4 Way Watchers, and that's all you can bring, or you can bring 5 Way Watchers. Well, how about that? And oh, you can bring these guys too. What do? They have Discourage for their leadership, and they have Smoke Bomb, but they can bring 5 Way Watchers. The idea being, they bring Way Watchers, they sneak up on you, and they obliterate your flame cannon, and then they sneak away, right? So that's what Wood Elf players try to do with the Way Watchers, and this is to defend against that. They come and do that with Way Watchers. They come in, they get close enough, you leave your Dwarf Warriors out front. I mean, I have a game against Rorka Boss as my coach, and it's just a test match, like just a practice game, where if you leave them far enough away, you're going to see them before they can take a shot at your flame cannon. So you'll be able to shoot back. Plus, you'll have time to hit the Rune of Negation if you want, and you know, you do have missile resistance to all that stuff as it is, and then you can shoot back with your Rangers. And Rangers trade pretty well, and if you can't see his Way Watchers, he can't see your Rangers. And then the 2 bolt throwers are just a support there. And, you know, all the chevrons are just to, you know, it's sort of just worked out for the gold cost. Just let me see what is with all the chevrons off. Yeah, I have enough for 1 miner, but what would I do with them? You know, what do I do with that one soul miner precisely in the build? And then I can't get a build with perfect money. So that really bothers me. This comes to 42, so that's why I have that. I do have 350 extra gold there. You know, I mean, I could upgrade some of these Dwarf Warriors, but really, I think this is a difficult nut to crack for the Wood Elves. And the thing that I got to worry about in this is now really on the Wood Elf build is a Mass Wildwood Ranger build, or yeah, Wildwood Ranger, because these guys now got cheaper. You can bring 5 of them, and they do have this bonus versus large. It doesn't matter. They do have armor piercing, and they have good stats: 48 melee attack, 36 melee defense. Really, that's what you got to worry about. So that's at least my build. But if they're going to come, they're going to get really gunned down by that flame cannon. They're going to be beat up by the bolt thrower, and I can send Throny out there, and Throny can debuff them, and he can terrify them, which should, we'll see. I mean, I don't know if this build's going to work. I know I've used a build similar to it with just a regular runesmith, but these guys have lots of magic attacks. They could focus on him, but if they're close enough to focus on Throny Ironbrow, they're going to get absolutely pelted by bolt throwers, rangers, and flame cannon. So that's sort of how I've got my builds. Now, I think I've used every single unit in the game now. I might have missed some. As I look through here, if I missed anybody, I think I got a ranger, I got quarters of great weapons, I got the Skolder Guard, Iron Drakes, I've got all 4 of my gyros, all of my artillery. I don't have the Peak Gate Guard in there. I'm going to have to find a place for the Peak Gate Guard. But I think I have all of these guys, Regiments of Renown, and units for everything. I have all of my heroes. I might not have a Base Master Engineer. I might have to go take a look at that. So I'm just looking at myself funny as I go through all this. I look and I think I might be missing 2 characters. Anyways, if I'm missing more, put it down in the comments below, and I will try and get them into there in one of these builds. Maybe I look at my vampire count. Where's my vampire count? Yeah, maybe I actually try to do... Oh, I already have a... Okay. Maybe I try to do this. And... Yeah, I can't get a Regiment of Renown in there. So I can't do that. Well, I gotta find a place. For them. I don't precisely know where will be the best one, but maybe I've put them in here somehow. Maybe I'll find a way to actually stick them in here. Yeah, could I do that? I guess I could stick them in here. Just as I'm getting to the end, the video's over, by the way. I'm just like obsessed with making sure all my builds have the Regiments of Renown. I noticed I didn't have the Peak Gate Guard, at least I don't think. How close am I going to get? 80... 66... 73... 70! I did it! Okay, so now I have the Peak Gate Guard into my Norska. Into my Norska build. So Norska, Clan Angren, the Peak Gate Guard are now... Whoops. Save that army. Norska, Clan Angren. Got the Peak Gate Guard in there now. And I guess I gotta find a place for a baseline engineer. Baseline master engineer. Bretonia? Might be a good choice. I guess. Get him in there. And I guess the Fire Ring Authority probably does pretty good against chaff. Well, what does it cost? I need to get rid of 600 gold somewhere. I guess you get that. Does that get us 27? Do you have anything else worth 600 gold? Now I get my master engineer there. Do I want to try and get him with an ability? Just while I'm thinking about it. 112. 112. No, there's really nothing there. So let's see. Even with no abilities. What do we got? 135. 128. 119. 111. 115. Yeah, I'd go like that and then up like this. No. And 26. Yeah. What do I need? So this is the bonus section of the video where you're going to get to see me fuss about getting chevrons. This is what I do incessantly. I just like making builds where I get chevrons. So Master Engineer, like, is there anything I could bring with them? I mean, I could bring this Firing Authority, but then what do I do? I have to downgrade one Longbeard for one Dwarf Warrior, or I got 600 gold. I think 550 that I like. I mean, do I like another Ranger in there? Something like that. And then something like this. 75. 73. 75. That's crazy how the chevrons go up so much. 74. 73. Why is it like that? So can these two get there? 72. Do I need to? I want to get a different ability altogether. Do I want like the accuracy ability so I make things more accurate? I mean, that could be useful if I'm just wandering around with this sort of accuracy thing, like that. Now I have to trade in another Longbeard for another Dwarf Warrior. And then what do we got for chevrons? 135, 105. Whoops. $125. What do we got? 119. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's going to be my army, and then I'll have like 2 extra Rangers to go to town. Okay, versus Bretonia, the Dwarfs. Whoops. Save versus Bretonia. All right. And now I have a Master Engineer. Now, the Master Engineer with a little bit of accuracy will actually will help shoot down King Lewin, and can help shoot cavalry and get in the way. These 3 Rangers can go on a mission against artillery, and these Iron Drakes can help protect my lines with the Quarters of Great Weapons and the Thunders. My front line is a little bit thin, but I do have Grombrindle, and I can get that Master Engineer, and I can really use my Iron Drake. So I do have the Gyrocopter, so I guess that's it. Now, if you're still watching, because I know some of you love doing exactly this stuff, you know, if I did miss anything else, please let me know. I think I now have everything in all of my builds. I'm gonna start playing them. I will not take out things that are not in a build. I'll just try to build around them and make them work. The point is not to make the most competitive army. The point is to make as competitive an army as I can while showing off all of the Dawi. That's the point that I'm trying to make, and why I'm playing with all these different units and doing this. And when I get Felix and Gotrek, I'll put them in the armies as well. And you know, of course, I'll try to put them together. You know, maybe Gotrek and Felix, who would they be? They'd probably be really good against the vampires. But yeah, so what do I got against Vampire Coast or Vampire Counts? Yeah, I can take Thorgrim out of there, take the Runesmith out of there, and bring Gotrek and Felix. Sure, just get rid of something in here. Figure it out. Yeah, I could do that. Thorgrim could fight with Gotrek and Felix. I think that'd be fun. It'd be fun maybe to put him with the Beastmen too, because then he could be with Ungrim or against the Lizardmen. So where's my Lizardman build? Where am I going to put Gotrek and Felix? In Lizardman, I think I only have my hero. So yeah, I only have Ungrim. I could put Gotrek and Felix in here. Sure, with Ungrim Iron Fist. And the 3 of them could try and goon something. Why not? You know, if it never fails that the Lizardmen try and get something into the Iron Drakes. Gotrek and Felix with Ungrim Iron Fist, that could be epic. This is, I think, where the army that they're going to go in. Might not be quite as robust because I'm going to have to lose something that I really like in here to make that work. But I think we'll find a way to get him in there. So anyways, that is my armies, my builds, and if I missed anything, put it down below in the comments. Anything else, I always ask for comments. I love comments. Just even if you're stopping in to say hi, I really do appreciate it, because this is the hobby that we all love, and I love to share it, and look forward to hearing from you guys. So with that said, I do hope you found this interesting, and I will see you soon.